From Robert Herjavec going back on his deal for the smell soaps to a failed breathometer that had all 5 sharks excited, these are the biggest Shark Tank fails of all time. Let's kick this off with Robert going back on his word. You won't believe what happened with smell soap. Megan Cummins had this amazing idea to create a fancy soap brand, so she went on Shark Tank for some help. It all seemed to go smoothly on the show. Robert Herjavec offered $55,000 and wanted a fat $50,000 salary in return for 30% of the company. And guess what? Cummins didn't think twice and said yes. But hold on, here comes the shocker. Herjavec disappeared into thin air for 6 months. Finally, when they reconnected, he had the audacity to change the whole deal. He wanted to give Megan only $50,000, but grab a whopping 50% of the company. You can imagine Megan's reaction. She was absolutely furious and said a big fat no. I mean, can you blame her? She had already wasted so much time. Luckily, she managed to find another investor. But let me tell you, it wasn't smooth sailing from there. This new investor bought the entirety of You Smell Soap and ended up going bankrupt not long after. Although, while some fail because they don't get enough attention, others, like Toy Guru, flop because they get a little too much attention. What's cool was that many could totally relate to this frustrating situation. Their kids have a mountain of toys, but somehow they managed to get bored with almost all of them. So, entrepreneur Nikki Pope went on Shark Tank during the show's 2nd season, aiming to solve this very problem. Her company, Toy Guru, had a simple yet brilliant idea. It was like the Netflix of toys. Parents could subscribe to the service and rent toys online. When their kids grew out of them or lost interest, they could simply return them. And don't worry, each toy was thoroughly cleaned before being sent out to the next child. Pope went on the show asking for $100,000 in exchange for a 10% share in Toy Guru. She received 2 offers. Kevin O'Leary offered the amount for a 35% stake, while Mark Cuban and Robert Herjavec came together and offered $200,000 for a 40% stake. O'Leary emphasized his experience with toy retailers, which convinced Cuban to exclude Herjavec from the deal and make the same offer with O'Leary. Finally, Pope agreed and partnered with O'Leary and Cuban. But here's the sad part. Toy Guru is no more. It turns out that going on Shark Tank was a big mistake for Toy Guru. They never had trouble finding customers, but when the show aired and they got the famous Shark Tank bump, they also got a surge in customers they just weren't prepared to handle. So sometimes even a fantastic idea can crumble due to poor execution. And then there was the fitness device that felt too useful but really wasn't. Yep, you got it, it's the Body Jack. It was an invention designed to make push-ups easier and more effective by using bands to target specific muscle groups. The Body Jack made an appearance on Shark Tank, and things got pretty interesting. Jack Barringer, the owner of Body Jack, was told by Barbara Corcoran that he needed to shed 30 pounds, just so he could prove that the product actually worked before they could strike a deal. Well, guess what? Jack did it. He lost the weight and the deal went through. But sadly, that's where the good news ends. Despite the initial investment, the business didn't find any success. In fact, Barbara Corcoran later referred to Body Jack as one of the worst deals she'd ever made, claiming that Jack Barringer took all her money. Ouch! In 2012, it seems like Body Jack went defunct. However, in 2015, Cactus Jack reappeared with his own commerce company, and the Body Jack was once again available for sale. But after July 2021, the company went out of business once more. It's a tough lesson, but sometimes even with a good idea and a TV deal, success doesn't always come knocking. And sometimes, ideas are amazing, but they just don't work out. Take Beam, for example. This one's for the butter lovers out there. Imagine being able to spray butter instead of settling for a boring old pat. That's exactly what Beam, a butter spraying kitchen gadget was all about. When Doug Foreman took his invention to Shark Tank, he had big dreams of securing $500K in funding in exchange for a 5% ownership stake in his company. His presentation captured Lori Greiner's attention, and she made the decision to give Doug the full amount he requested. However, she wanted a higher equity share of 14%. But here's the sad part. Beam didn't quite live up to its initial promise. Despite the strong support from Lori and others, the final product didn't match the excitement generated by the prototypes. Here's another twist. Beam had also raised funds through a Kickstarter campaign. As you might expect, the Kickstarter backers were less than thrilled when the faulty first version of Beam hit the market. It left a bad taste in their mouths, and they flooded the Better Business Bureau with complaints. Maybe a new and improved version could have saved Beam. But by that time, many supporters had already abandoned the ship, including Lori Greiner. Ultimately, the company had to shut down. And that wasn't Lori's only bad experience. There was also the Show No Towels pitch. It was basically a towel shaped like a poncho, with a convenient opening in the middle for your head. Right from the beginning, things didn't go smoothly between Shelley Ealer, the founder, and Lori Greiner, her Shark Tank partner. According to Shelley, there were some issues with the deal. Greiner apparently warned her not to cash the check right away, and later tried to change the terms of their agreement. She asked for a whopping 70% of the company instead of the agreed-upon 25%. When Shelley refused, Greiner then proposed a loan that could only be used for sales, excluding other expenses. Shelley expressed her frustration with the whole situation, saying that her Shark Tank deal with Lori Greiner turned out to be a disappointment. Unfortunately, Show No Towels heavily relied on one big deal with Disney, and things didn't go as planned. The online sales of the product didn't impress, and the profit margin wasn't sufficient to meet Disney's expectations. After months of trying to push the deal forward, it eventually fell apart. On top of that, a royalty deal with Franco Manufacturing also fell through. The combination of these failed deals and the tension between Shelley and Lori ultimately led to the dissolution of the business. However, 3 years after shutting down Show No Towels, Shelley Eller is back in business. She's restarted the website and has shifted her focus to selling the towels primarily to people with disabilities, a market that Lori Greiner didn't consider large enough to pursue. It's a story of ups and downs, but Shelley is determined to make a fresh start and find success in her own way. But fresh starts don't always work out. I mean, there was the new Foot Fairy concept that failed horribly. This was an iPad app designed to measure children's foot sizes. The founders had good intentions in mind, aiming to help prevent foot problems in kids caused by wearing ill-fitting shoes. However, right from the start, there were numerous issues with the app and its business model. The idea behind Foot Fairy was that the app would generate revenue through commissions earned from Zappos and other online shoe retailers. Users of the app could directly purchase footwear from these retailers through Foot Fairy, but neither Shapiro nor Brooks had any prior experience in app development, so they had to hire developers to build the app for them. Unfortunately, the app they ended up with was riddled with bugs. It failed to accurately track and capture commission payments, which meant that the founders couldn't earn any money from their concept. To make matters worse, the deal with Mark Cuban, one of the sharks, never came to fruition. Within just 6 months of the Shark Tank episode airing back in 2014, Foot Fairy had to shut down. And finally, there's the Shark Tank pitch that all sharks loved. It's the breathometer. This was a wearable device that was designed to measure blood alcohol levels and worked with a smartphone app. The concept seemed promising, and all the sharks on Shark Tank were interested and invested together. However, things quickly went downhill after the deal was finalized. One of the major challenges Breathometer faced was fulfilling the high volume of orders it received. But that wasn't the only issue. It soon became evident that the device didn't perform as advertised. The results it provided were inaccurate, and at times, it even reported blood alcohol levels that were significantly lower than the actual values. This was a major problem because it could potentially lead people to believe they were fit to drive when they were actually impaired. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, the FTC intervened and ordered Breathometer to provide full refunds to all customers and remove the product from the market. Mark Cuban, one of the sharks, even labeled it the worst execution in Shark Tank's history and accused the founder of misusing the funds that were invested. So, from a failed breathometer that had all 5 sharks excited, to Robert Herjavec going back on his deal for the smell soaps, those were the biggest Shark Tank fails of all time.